What is the worst thing to do on a first date? Browse through dating apps on your phone throughout the date. That's a power move right there. I actually stood up and left a date because of that. He asked about what I did and what I like, typical date, and he just started Tinder and went swiping. I stopped talking and looked at him at his face. He didn't notice for a few seconds, realized, and I said, well, goodbye. He tried to say sorry and to make me stay, but like, seriously, if you can't have a decent conversation and listen when you're talked to, then it's not worth my time. Bye and thank you. Girl, the weather is nice, me, thanks. Claiming to be the divine on the first date. That's hardcore. Lol. Everyone has done that at least once. This is my favorite one. Just play it off and pretend you're a weather lord. Forgot her name. You can always recheck on Tinder. Mulva. I forgot my wife's name. It wasn't a one-on-one date, but we were talking all night in a group of people and quickly introduced ourselves at the beginning of the dinner. She laughed and we just reintroduced ourselves. I farted on her porch and her mom laughed so hard she called her sister to come over to meet me. This says worst things to do, not best. Mom called her own sister or your date's sister. Keep bringing up your ex. It makes you seem like you're not over it, and not ready to move on. I once wore a shirt I really liked on a date. He proceeded to say, my beautiful Venezuelan ex-girlfriend had a shirt like that. It looked amazing on her. And it took him approximately 3.5 seconds to pull up the photo of her wearing it. That was in 2014 and I still haven't worn that shirt since. My recent ex used to do that a lot. Like at first I was understanding, like it was a bad breakup or whatever. But it was mentioned quite often. The worst was then I said XYZ and she'd then respond with, my ex used to do XYZ, or we used to say XYZ to each other. Got annoying after a while. I read somewhere that this guy put his hand on the girl's belly and said, soon this will be plump with my seed. As I plant this seed in the ground, so shall I plant my seed in you. http://www.fmylifedotcom/article/today-i-went-on-a-we-went-to-first-time-we-went-to-we-went-to-we-dash-went-to-dash-the-dash-first-time-we-dash-went-to-dash-starbbucks-and-dash-we-dash-went-to-dash-starbbucks-and-dash-we-dash-went-dash-to-dash-starbucks-and-dash-we-dash-went-dash-to-dash-starbucks-dash-and-dash-got-dash-coffee-dash-we-dash-talk_1612227.html. There was a thread about bad dates today in a group I'm part of. Girl met this guy, they went out to dinner for their first date, she went to the bathroom, when she came back he'd ordered champagne, the waitress asked what they were celebrating, he reached over for her hand and said loudly, we're celebrating our future, and some people around them started clapping. I can't even begin to imagine. Only talk about yourself. You have to listen and ask questions about the other person's life and they should reciprocate that to you. Also, going on your phone. Talking about your ex is the worst. What about going on your phone to frantically look something up to prove yourself right in a made-up argument that you are forcing on your date? Because that happened to me years ago and it was, woof. Sit down at the table and order food without checking to see if your date is waiting outside for you. I think it's normal to go inside, but not to order. Did this happen to you? Skeptical smiley face. I had a guy order for me on our first date before I even got there. I had to send the plate back because it would have killed me. Skeptical smiley face. Tell her you're going to have to leave a bit early because it's your anniversary. Listen, it's already 8. Should we find a hotel room or something? Because if I'm out past 10 my wife will get suspicious. I hear they'll upgrade your room for free if you write it in the comments section when you book. Propose. My wife knows a couple, they'd known each other for years, but never dated. One day they're riding a ferry and out of the blue, he says to her, "Who's your perfect guy?" She said, "You." They had their first date a few days later, he proposed, she accepted, they're married like 30 years now. Lookin' at you schmoseby. My dad actually did this to my mom, she said yes, too. I think the only reason he got away with it was because they'd been best friends for several years and known each other even longer beforehand. Merging it with lunch with parents. Several years ago I met a guy at an outdoor bar, we hit it off, so I agreed to go on a date with him the following Saturday. Because I wasn't sure if I wanted this guy to know where I lived, I had him pick me up at the same outdoor bar. As we were taking a taxi to the restaurant, he informed me that his father was meeting us for dinner. We show up to the restaurant and his dad walks in shortly after we do, and immediately notices me standing there with his son, and looks super pissed. Following his dad, was dude's stepmother, half-sister, and cousin. So I got to have family dinner with all of them on our first and last date. His family was lovely and his dad eventually warmed up to me, I think after realizing that I hadn't planned on being in the middle of this situation. To make matters worse, I later found out that my date was married and had a baby, and this probably further explained the father's cold attitude. My first date with my current girlfriend, going on 6 years, ended up with drinks at her parents' house where I hung with both parents and her sister. It was actually a blast and I consider them a second family now. I had a first date that was lunch at my house. My mother was there, made us lunch. I was a freshman in high school, girl was a junior. I also lived down the street from the school. I'd also recently had a brain injury, had an EEG that morning. It was a very weird date, but we dated a few months. Edit, this was a school day. Go to an all-you-can-eat buffet and stuff yourself to the point where you can barely function afterwards. Shit, that sounds like something I'd do. Not ask a single question about the person you're on the date with. Not 1. Also answer every question they ask with one-word responses. Or the opposite, asking so many questions it feels like an interrogation. This happened to me. It got to a point where it was hysterical. I love you. I was spending time with this girl in her bedroom and she remarked, I love it when you do _______, so I felt, for some odd reason, that I needed to reciprocate the sentiment. So on the second time we had hung out I blurted out, I love you. Definitely most awkward experience I've ever had. Like Ted Mosby. Bring your parole officer. I was a parole officer. Kind of pissed I was never invited to one. Joke about date rape drugs. I want to see someone's reaction to having one of those lil styrofoam expanding dinosaur pills put into their drink. But I don't think I could pull that off without being kicked out. The dinosaur just doesn't expand fast enough. Ask her to move in.